It was a quiet night when David, a 10-year-old boy, lay in his bed. His room was small but cozy, with superhero posters on the walls and a dim nightlight glowing on the table. The clock on his nightstand showed 3 a.m. David moved around in his sleep, tangled in his blanket. Suddenly he felt something. A cold hand grabbed his ankle. His eyes shot open in fear, but there was nothing there. He tried to pull his foot away, but the grip tightened. His heart started beating faster. He kicked his foot and turned on the lamp, flooding the room with light. There was nothing under the bed, just shadows. David pulled his legs up under the covers, shaking with fear. He told himself it was just a bad dream, but the feeling of something being in the room wouldn't go away. He stayed awake for the rest of the night, too scared to sleep. The next day, David didn't feel any better. He was tired and worried. At school, he told his friend Ethan what had happened. Ethan laughed and said, "You probably just had a bad dream." But David wasn't so sure. That evening, David noticed red scratches on his ankle. They were thin, like someone had grabbed him. He tried to tell his mom, but she didn't believe him. She said, "It's nothing, David. You probably scratched yourself while you were sleeping." That night, after his parents went to bed, David lay awake again. He was too scared to close his eyes. Then he heard a faint scratching sound from under the bed. It was soft at first, like nails dragging across the floor. David lay still, hoping it would stop. But it didn't. The scratching got louder. Then, David heard a voice. It was soft but clear, like someone was whispering right next to him. The voice said, "David, come play with us." David's heart skipped a beat. He quickly grabbed his flashlight and looked under the bed. There was nothing there. No hands, no shadows. Just the dark floor. David felt his breathing slow down, but he was still scared. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The next day, David went to school and told Ethan more about what was happening. Ethan looked serious and said, "You haven't heard the story, have you?" Ethan explained that a long time ago, children used to disappear in David's house. No one knew what happened to them. Some people believed that the hands under the bed had taken them. Those children never came back, and their spirits were still hiding under the beds in the house. Ethan warned David that if he didn't stop paying attention to it, he might become the next victim. David felt scared, but he didn't want to tell his parents. He thought they would think he was crazy. That night, as David lay in bed, he felt the temperature in the room drop. It became cold, too cold. Then, the whispers came again, louder this time. "David, come play with us." The voice was clearer now, and it sounded like many voices, not just one. David grabbed his flashlight and looked under the bed. This time, he saw them. Hands. Dozens of hands, pale and bony, reaching out from under the bed. Some had sharp nails, some were just twisted fingers. They grabbed at the air as if trying to pull David in. David screamed and kicked, trying to get away, but the hands were too strong. They grabbed his legs and pulled him toward the bed. He fought as hard as he could, but he couldn't escape. The hands pulled him closer, dragging him under the bed. David reached for his flashlight again and shined it under the bed. For a moment, the hands stopped moving. The light seemed to hurt them, but they didn't let go. The darkness under the bed was alive, and David could feel it pulling him deeper into it. David kicked and screamed for help, but no one could hear him. The hands pulled him all the way under the bed. The next day, David's parents came home. They went into his room, but David was gone. The bed was still made, and there was no sign of a struggle. The only thing left was the cold, empty room. That night, as his parents searched the house, they heard a faint whisper coming from under the bed. "David, you belong to us now." They quickly looked under the bed, but there was nothing there. Just shadows. David's parents kept looking for him, but they never found him. They searched the house, asked neighbors, and even called the police, but David was never seen again. All that remained were the whispers that came from under the bed. And if you listen closely, you might still hear the whispers too. The hands are still waiting.